Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Bucks said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. Today's floor plan with me, not Ethan, not Brady, but the recent birthday, I don't want to say, I guess, birthday boy. I was also that Alex Toledo at Tropical Blanket. I don't even know. How old did you turn, Alex, as we start
27.
this? Okay. And 41 for me. So, yes, I am old and washed up. Anyway, today's floor plan. It was the first practice with Kevin Love and Cody Zeller in the building where media had access. Brady Hawk was there. Definitely check out what he posted on his Twitter account. Lots of great content there. He always gets the best answers out of Eric Spoelstra. We're going to talk about if Kevin Love doesn't start, what does this look like? What does it mean for the bench? What does it mean for the front court? What does it mean for Cody Zeller? So that's kind of what we're going to dig into today, the night before they head to Milwaukee for a back-to-back. They first are against the Bucks, and then they play the Hornets. So before we dive into all that, I am shouting out a great sponsor. This road trip needs to go good. If it doesn't, it could be a disaster. And when a disaster strikes in your home or business, you know who we're going to. Water Cleanup of Florida. Do you have a leak and you don't know where it's coming from or dealing with water or mold damage to your home or business? Then Water Cleanup of Florida at 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance is who you call. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, and the team are prepared to handle any size leak detection issue 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged area. They're fully licensed, insured, certified. They provide the one-stop shopping you need as a busy homeowner or business owner. There's no need to bring in any other contractors. They handle the entire project, start to finish. Service areas include Miami, Broward, Palm Beach County. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell, 954-579-0356. The website is wcufl.com. If you got the schmutz, they got the guts. All right. So we all thought Kevin Love was going to start. I thought he's going to start. I think he might still start. But the vibe around practice, as we got the opportunity to listen to some quotes, but also, you know, kind of just temperature check from Brady and just asking people around, it doesn't sound like Kevin Love is going to be an automatic starter, Alex. So that agenda appears to be not what we thought. So they may lean into the starting lineup as it has been, and he'll come off the bench. Maybe that's only temporary. So first off, I want to know, what is your take on the idea of them just coming out of the break here and not making the change, sticking with Caleb in the starting lineup, integrating Kevin Love off of the bench? How does that make you feel in terms of the implications of the rotation, but also Kevin Love's role just overall and it being a bench role and who he may have to be spending minutes with? I'm interested to pick your brain on that, because truthfully, I've kind of conceptualized this from the start as that this would be the moment Spoelstra would insert Kevin Love and go. And it looks like I'm likely going to be wrong.
Yeah, man. I was kind of looking to see, and I know that was kind of what was the hot topic with the Heat as far as what Kevin's role was going to be. And honestly, it's not surprising. I think this, with 23 games left, mid-season for a team that's, not been awesome, but, we know what they're good at, and their starting lineup has not been the problem necessarily. So I don't think it's surprising. I think It is the most conservative way to bring Kevin into the rotation. I think it's the best way for them to still lean into their defensive first identity, which is frankly the only way that they've been able to get buckets all season, and they've always been the defensive first franchise, right? So I think that's the easiest way to just um, still integrate him without messing with things too much, right? Which is kind of something weird to say, I think, for a team that's currently the 7th seed. But I honestly, I think this is probably the most measured thing to do and just see how it goes. And maybe if, the Kevin Love and Bam lineups are just that great, like you can use that as a playoff type of lineup, right? Because I don't think necessarily his playing time, his minutes actually changes much, whether he's a starter or not. I think he's going to get that playing time, whether he's in lineups with Bam or not. And I think it's a little bit polarizing to think of him as somebody who could be a 5 without Bam on the floor. But I think with the amount of defensive personnel they have, especially on the perimeter, the Heat do, I think they can do it, especially with the fact that when Bam is not on the floor, they're zoning, they're sending the big up to the level and trapping. Like, you know what I mean? They're doing everything they can to take advantage of the defensive personnel they do have. So there's ways to play around that. And of course, things change in the playoffs. Guys' roles get minimized. But really, I think there's a lot that you can do with Kevin Love, and he's going to be around that 20-minute mark, if I had to guess, no matter if he starts or not. I think there's a lot of lineup possibilities, and he's going to get eased into all these different lineups, and they're going to see how everything looks. Now, what's interesting to me is whether or not they have another 5 in the rotation if he's not starting.
Yeah. You're leaning into where I want to go next. I guess I'll just finish the Kevin Love thought. In terms of him not starting, is this could be temporary. Like, you're always a 2-game losing streak away from a spot where you switch up the lineup and you see what happens, or you never know who has to sit and he gets an opportunity and then he never looks back. I think ultimately, eventually, Kevin Love's going to get the opportunity to start. But again, that's just a hunch on my part. We'll see how it plays out, because you're right. Like, there is some advantages to him if he does play backup 5 and you continue to invert the offense and do what he does from, the top of the key, in different ways than Bam does. I just think that that's interesting to think about. I think because everyone's always thought of him as the addition at the 4 and not so much as a 5. So I think, Alex, that's an interesting thing that you bring up. But what does it mean for Cody Zeller's role? Like, then is he really like more of an emergency big or a spot start big, or how do you, if Kevin Love is your big off the bench and Caleb has kind of secured that starting spot and that's how they want to roll, are you really going to play 2 bigs? Like, I think that that's an interesting, I don't know. We haven't seen it late in the postseason that Spoelstra has done that off the bench. But keep me honest, if you can remember a time where that was being done. But if Kevin Love comes off the bench, I think him and Cody Zeller kind of qualify as the same, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can both come off the bench and play together or be in different lineups, and I'm overthinking this, but I guess I didn't envision that necessarily, but maybe I am underestimating how badly they need size off the bench. And, they're going to have enough minutes as bigs behind Bam together to both play. And so maybe I'm underestimating it. So keep me honest if I am, but what is your take on what this means for Cody Zeller's role if Kevin Love is coming off the bench as they, close the season, these final 23 games?
So it's really interesting, man, because the Zeller pickup would have, it kind of signals that they want to play another big. Maybe they're not sure about Omer's progress. He hadn't really, solidified himself as that backup big like he was projected to before the season started because of the setbacks that he had with his body. And so Zeller is somebody who, as we've talked about on previous pods, just has a certain floor of being a solid NBA 5. So and especially it seems like Spo talked him up a little bit today. It seems like he is slated to get a small rotation spot there, and I think you can get creative and figure it out. And even if Love is not starting, to have Zeller get some minutes here and there, but it's not typically what Spo does. Like he usually will go less with the rotation, not play more guys. So I'm interested to see how that works because I don't think like playing Love and Zeller together is the move. That's kind of the opposite of what you've seen the Heat do this season. And I'm not even talking about size. I'm just talking about like going towards lateral agility. Like that's not, like you said, that's Spo is gonna favor having switchable players that can just guard more space. And I don't think Love and Zeller combinations are the move. Maybe you can get away with it for a couple of minutes, but yeah, I think Zeller's role would be easier to figure out if Love was starting.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's more balanced, and maybe we'll get there. A little bit of adversity, somebody feels uncomfortable, and all of a sudden they can make a lineup change. So we'll see. But we did think it was a takeaway from practice today. So we wanted to at least address the idea of him being more of a bench role and what that would mean. I think it is kind of, to be determined in terms of how they can mix in Cody Zeller. And also, I think maybe I'm just being this is showing how conditioned the Miami Heat fan is to being so limited with options that these are just additional options that the team has. And maybe that just needs to be acknowledged instead of how's everyone going to play? Well, at least now you have this many guys to actually be available. So we'll see how it breaks down. The next thing we're going to do before we close is talk a little bit about this road trip, but particularly the back-to-back in Milwaukee and Charlotte. Before we do, I'm shouting out Prize Picks. Use the code 5 to get your initial deposit matched up to $100. You guys know the deal with this. It is daily fantasy made easy. You choose your favorite players from your favorite sports, choose stats, you go over or under, and the more players you choose on one card and get correct together, the more you win. You can multiply up to 10 times your winnings, but you got to use the code 5 to get your initial deposit matched up to $100. They did really fun NBA futures, like they said in these last 23 games, would Jimmy Butler have more or less 30-point games? And the number was 3. So would he have 3 or more? I went over there. I feel like Jimmy Butler will have more than 3 30-point games. That's the kind of cool stuff that they have at Prize Picks. Use the code 5 to get your initial deposit matched up to $100. And want to also shout out the official betting sponsor of 5 Reasons Sports Network and 5 on the Floor, and that is Better Edge. This is social betting. It's a completely different marketplace where you can go and shop around for the odds that you want on the games that you are after. It's a lot of fun, but you got to use the code 5RSN to get $20 to start playing. You can play with that immediately. We do competitions all the time. We did one for the Super Bowl. We'll do one for March Madness, but you got to get on there. It's a web-based app, but super easy and intuitive to play. We have a lot of fun. Sean Rochester, Tony Schwartz, Ethan Skolnick, all of us are on there. We play constantly. So definitely get in touch with us if you have questions about Better Edge, but use the code 5RSN to get $20 to play at betteredge.com. So Milwaukee's probably not. Giannis is doubtful, so no Giannis, but it's still a good ass team at home. How are you feeling about the Milwaukee game? Everyone's rested, everyone's available except Kyle, Yurt, and Jovic. So it's the full group, basically, besides Kyle. How do you feel about the first game in Milwaukee? And then we'll wrap with Charlotte and get out of here.
I mean, the Milwaukee thing is cool because you've already seen the Heat go up against the Bucks without Giannis twice, and Gabe Vincent just sees green versus the Bucks without Giannis, excuse me. And So I think it's a good way to integrate Kevin Love, to introduce him to the system, because the Bucks are a team that typically drops a whole lot with or without Giannis, and obviously without Giannis, who is an all defense level player, it just makes things a whole lot easier for Love, I think. And because of the drop, most of the time that pick and pop is going to be available. I think that was something that the Heat had when they beat the Bucks in 5 between the two stretch bigs with Kelly and Myers as an option there. Even though those guys played less minutes in the playoffs, that optionality was there because the pop does kind of counter the drop. I didn't even mean to phrase it like that.
You rhyming now?
Yeah. That I feel like Dr. Seuss right now, but seriously, the Heat haven't had this element since Kelly was traded. And so it's going to be honestly a good way to see some of what Kevin Love can do and, practically into what the Heat need, right? Because it's one thing to think about Kevin Love and who he was when he was an all-star player, and he's not going to get that bevy of looks where things are just created for him, right? I think he's going to be able to take advantage with open shots, of course, when teams collapse into the paint, which has been a big problem for the Heat, especially since the last Eastern Conference Finals, but it's been a trend throughout this season as well, where teams are just selling out and going into the paint and not being worried about the Heat shooters. Like, I think you really can't do that with Kevin Love over and over. Like, he is going to burn you. And, according to him, he's feeling good as far as his thumb. He said that was kind of getting in the way of his three-point shooting before. He said he's feeling good. So, I think it's a great game for him to show off what he can do. And if you can get some, I think, small guys switched onto him, that's the other way that you can show off some of what he can do. But
yeah,
really, that's all he's got to do. And again, you can just build so many interesting lineups now with a couple more rotation bigs that you couldn't do before. And I think it's just going to matter so much in the playoffs. Even if these guys combined might not get that many minutes, it'll still probably be around 20. So that's not nothing. Like, getting 20 rotation minutes, whether combined or not, between Love and Zeller, like, they got something, right? Like, I think the trade deadline was a little bit disappointing for everybody who roots for the Heat, but the buyout stuff definitely helped, because I think Love's skill set is gonna fit nicely. And honestly, let's see if Zeller plays tomorrow, because I think now the question is, if they do play another 5, is it gonna be Zeller? I'm interested to see that. I would guess it's gonna be Zeller. I don't think he's not available, is he?
That's a great question. I don't think he's active. So let me check on that. I'll get to it while we're here. But I agree with you. I also think with Giannis out,
he's not available.
Good call. So yeah, it's like, what other bigs are coming off the bench?
It's just bad timing with him, because you thought we were just talking on a couple pods ago, like, oh, Orlando's two-way is kind of coming up and Dedmon is off the team. Now all of a sudden they have 2 more bigs, right? So, and Orlando Robinson isn't even really factoring into this right now. It's just bad timing for Omer. Like, now you think he's going to be back, and Zeller is probably going to play tomorrow, and kind of, if he shows off, I think it's going to be tougher to pull him from Spo's end to play Omer.
Very true. And also Kevin Love. I think that if all of a sudden he looks like he is comfortable and finding space, and I also think that the passing elements of his game, if that starts to click early with this team to kind of just rejuvenate the offense, inject a little bit of life, I see Spo leaning into that quickly. So I'm not reading into the starting lineup stuff too much. I think Milwaukee is a good place to start, not only for Kevin Love, but also for guys like Tyler Hero, who has had an up and down, but mostly down shooting stretch to start February. We're getting towards the end of the month here. I know we've had a break, but we need to see better play from Tyler. So that I think that that's something else against a Milwaukee team that could be advantage Miami. But we'll see. It's a tough matchup no matter what. Milwaukee, they're at the top of the East for a reason. So we'll see how they go into that game. I'm feeling good about it. Usually arrested Jimmy means that he will come out with purpose. Then they go to Charlotte. I'll be covering that game, hopefully live on site there. And then I think Alex and Brady will be doing it, the watch party on playback. So check out for that. And that'll be an interesting game because I don't know who might sit. It'll be super dope if everybody doesn't sit and they like start to show that the last 23 games matter. Alex is asking if we're doing playback for the Bucks. Yes, we are doing playback for the Bucks. Absolutely. And also want to mention that on the YouTube channel, Hangover Time is going to be on for the Milwaukee Bucks game. So you can check that out. So you can watch the game with us and then you could chill with them post game and then follow up with 5 on the Floor because we'll drop a podcast directly following that. But then they head to Charlotte and it'll be interesting. I would expect Bam, Tyler, Caleb, those guys are all going to play. I hope everybody plays on the second night of a back-to-back because they've had so much rest. Do you think I'm crazy to expect everyone to play on a second night of back-to-back in Charlotte?
No, I don't think you're crazy for that at all. Like, you're just coming off a huge break. If there's any time to play a back-to-back, it's now. And I don't think the Hornets are some juggernaut, right? That you got to be like, hey, play everybody. I think, they can probably win a game with all the other guys against the Hornets, to be fair. But the Heat are in the 7th seed right now. I think this is a time where you really want to secure those wins against teams that you're supposed to beat. And I think you got to take advantage, unless obviously something happens in the Bucks game and guys are, feeling different the day after on Saturday. Like, of course, the situations are fluid, but I'm talking about as of right now, if, guys are relatively healthy, I think they should play. Like, I think you got to take advantage of these games. And although, you're not talking about getting into home court advantage seeding for the playoffs, because we saw, again, I always bring this up because I'm still a little bit petty about it. We saw how they lost 3 straight home games in the Eastern Conference Finals last season.
It hurts.
Yeah,
every
I know.
time.
I know. It's still a little bit staggering to me that happened. But really, I think you're talking about trying to get into the 5 or 6 seed, and that's really what it's about. I don't think I really, I would prefer, if I was the Heat, in my opinion, the Sixers matchup, but regardless, I think 5 or 6 is a sweet spot. Of course, you don't want to get into a playing situation. I think it's a little bit below them for a team that was in the conference finals last season, the finals a couple seasons before that. So yeah, I think you got to take advantage of these games. Sorry for being so long-winded about it. Excuse me, but I was looking up the injury report for the Hornets. It seems like Oubre and Cody Martin are going to be out versus Minnesota, which is on Friday. So yeah, they're on the second night of a back-to-back as well. Even more reason as to why you got to take advantage and win these games. Like, this is a very soft opponent. And I mean that not only because of their talent, but also just the way they play. They're easy to score against. They're easy to rebound against. And last time they blew that game because of not, just kind of playing their game and letting the Hornets run around and do what they want. And the Heat were sloppy. And I just think it's, avoid that, take advantage, because they've got more than enough at this point. And I'm really just interested more in seeing how Spo integrates these new guys and how often he's going to love his backup 5, how often he's going to love with Bam. Because, again, we've seen Spo is not one to play 2 bigs. Like, they're going to have to change a little bit of how they defend with Love and Bam on the floor together. Of course, like, I think if you have them on the floor with Bam, you can switch everything. And then when Love is the one at the screen, you drop and kind of have others shading and helping to cover him up. And you can still switch everything else. And like I said before, in other situations, you could have him just come up to the level and blitz, which I think we'll probably see some of that, even if he is slow-footed. The Heat are very good at rotating behind guys when they blitz. So
let's hope the help comes. That's all I'll say.
I'm really just interested to see, those little things of how Spo works around these things.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And no matter who plays against Charlotte as we close here,
Jimmy's going to have a stretch big again, man. Like, for non-Bam minutes. Just my bad to interrupt you there. It's just, I remember when
amen.
to have Kelly there as a 5, like, you would have these minutes where they're able to produce pretty good offense just because you have Jimmy and a spaced out floor.
I mean, we saw what PJ did. And if all of a sudden Kevin Love comes in and he shoots 40% or more, and particularly for those teams that like to help off those corners, oh no. So we'll see what happens. But I think that it is a great fit. It'll be interesting to see that. They got to get the game against Charlotte, because here's the reality for Charlotte. They have 43 losses, the most losses in the NBA. Is 45. So they're not far off pace from having really great odds. They're kind of in that very bottom tier. They want to lose as much as possible, because we all know what they're after these last 25 or so games for these teams. So you got to get that game. There's no excuses. Plus, if I'm in the building, they got to get the win. So that is another reason. Thank you for chilling with us as we have talked to this team to death throughout this break. We are getting back to actual basketball mañana, or if you're listening to this, it might be today. So check us out on playback for Heat Bucks, and good night.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Regional Sports Network.